Peace, peace. This is Brother Faheem, and you are now tuned in to the Lead with Logic podcast. You know the vibes. Peace, peace, peace. This is Brother Faheem, and welcome back to another episode of the Lead with Logic podcast. Hey, man, look, we have a super duper duper treat for you guys today. This has been something that I've been trying to get to happen for a long, long time, and it finally happened. So, man, I'm gonna introduce this most gracious guest that we have here, and I'm gonna introduce him for those of you guys who don't know him. Right, he has roots in South Carolina. He was part of the Split Brotherhood. Right, he was personal security to Ella Little. For those of you guys who don't know, that's Minister Malcolm's sister. He was the liaison between the Black Panther Party and the OAAU. Right, Imam of Muslim Mosque Inc. El Hajj Amin Shaheed. He worked with the Black Panther Party, the Black Liberation Army, a little bit of work with SNCC, a little bit of work with the NAACP. Was a librarian in the Navy, and a couple of his peers that you guys may know is John Henry Clark, Asa Hilliard III. We have Dr. Ben, Dr. Jacob Carruthers, and also Mrs. Or Dr. Frances Cress Wellesley. Brothers and sisters, this is none other than Professor James Baba Smalls. How you doing, Baba Smalls?
I'm good, Baba Faheem. I'm glad we finally hooked up.
Yes, sir.
Like chasing me down for a minute, and I keep saying, we'll get back to this brother. Let's see what's going on.
Hey, listen.
My grandkids just rolling in from out there in the cold. They were in the runaway this weekend.
Oh,
that's King.
Peace, King. Peace, King. Yeah, man.
Here comes the little brother.
No. Hey,
this is the little Amari.
Peace, Amari and King. Peace. Hey, peace, little King. Yeah, man. No, listen, it happens, man. My kids come in from time to time too. They might jump in and jump out, but listen, I'm so glad that I could get some of your time, Baba. Really, I am.
Yes,
this is a huge blessing. So something happened, right?
Mm-hmm.
In the summer of '63.
And this is my daughter. That's the mama.
Hi.
Oh, okay. Peace.
New Year.
Happy New Year to you.
Hi. Happy New Year.
Hey, Happy New Year's to you, Queen. Happy New Year's to you. Everybody's over. That's right, because I know you were doing your thing. Yeah, so everybody's over there. Listen, from South Carolina, but something that I saw happen in the summer of '63 on 147th Street and 8th Avenue in front of the Food Family Supermarket where you were bagging groceries. I think you got to meet Minister Malcolm X, and he told you, stay in school because education is going to be the key to freeing our people.
Absolutely. And in that almost 15 minutes with me and Dwight talking to him, that's the only thing I remember. Because you were scared to death. This was Minister Malcolm from Temple Number 7. And he was the giant. You were just the 16-year-old kid wondering how could a Black man be so brave? Because I'd seen him on TV and everything. And to see a Black man on TV speaking power to white people, that was powerful in the 60s.
Yes.
He was the best of the best at doing that and articulating our political position, our cultural and social position. He was very clear on giving a critique of oppression in America and what that meant to us. And so you had to really, really, how do you say, you were dealing with a Superman. I don't know what else to say. This is Superman, and you like this little person trying to deal with Superman.
Absolutely, yeah.
And couldn't remember anything that he said other than education is the way we were going to free our people. I want to close my door. I want to make sure the noise is
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. You do what you got to do, Bob. You do
Oh,
what you
no.
got to do. Do what you got to do. Yeah, education. Listen. So, what my
And that's
question?
the key because he was very clear. I mean, people say he's self-educated, but everybody's self-educated. Um, he didn't have a lot of the assistance other people who went to college had. Um, he used knowledge to advance his consciousness and his understanding of the world economically, politically, and culturally as it affect Black people.
Mm-hmm.
And then he was coming up with solutions to the economic, political, and cultural problems of Black people. And he did it oratorically first, but then he was trying to establish institutional frameworks in the Black community to address these things.
Mm-hmm.
I remember one of the questions someone asked him once, what did he mean by Black nationalism? And he said, Black nationalism means you must control the economics, the politics, the culture where you live.
Mm.
And that's still our situation now.
Mm.
If we are to change the Black community, we've got to control the economics, meaning we can't be spending our money with people who don't live in our neighborhood, most of the time don't look like us, they don't hire us, and they take the money at the end of the day and do what Malcolm said they would do and take it to another part of town.
Mm-hmm.
What he's saying, that's bad economic practice. That you should spend your money only with people that look like you, live in your neighborhood, spend the money, invested their money in your neighborhood, hire the people from your neighborhood. And you can do that when you change how you use your money. You know, we can open a Black grocery store. You know, we can open a Black liquor store if you want. People drink liquor every day all over the world. People say, oh, that's negative. But if negative, they show enough acting like it's the most positive thing on earth. Consider it a thriving business in the Black community. So if it's going to be there, you own it. Okay.
That's
Um,
right.
if there's going to be a real estate business, you
Mm-hmm.
go to the Black real estate broker. Who will
Absolutely.
spend his money in your neighborhood,
That's right.
hire people from your neighborhood,
Mm-hmm.
apprentice the young people from your neighborhood so they can learn the craft. You know, you
Yeah.
go to him because the Black real estate broker is going to show you how to buy some land in your neighborhood, how to buy a building in your neighborhood.
Right.
That's a part of the economics. You deal with the economics by saying, okay, um, I've gone to college now. Do I move away to the white suburb or do I bring my economic educational skill back to the Black community?
Absolutely.
And that's what Malcolm X was talking about. That's what we have to do now. This isn't a dissertation, this is common sense.
Yes, sir.
Common sense is if I got a handful of money and I wanted to go from my left hand to my right hand, I can't give it to somebody else's hand
Right.
because it will not get from my right hand to my left hand.
Not at all, Baba. Not
No.
at all.
And
Listen.
so that's the common sense kind of thinking that happens in every community in the world that's doing well.
Mm-hmm.
And communities that are not doing well economically, like the Black community, because last year we spent $1.8 trillion and we spent the $1 trillion with other people. More than that, we spend 1.2 trillion or 1.3 trillion with other people. We took
Hey.
all that money away from our community, didn't invest none of that money in our community, didn't hire anybody from our community, right? And didn't live in our community, you know?
Yeah. And it hurts us, Baba. It hurts
Yeah.
us. It
No,
continues to hurt us.
that's the reality. And if you don't change that reality, stop having conversations about culture and history and growth and development, because none of it will make sense if we don't change our spending habits, if we don't change our attitude towards economic, if we don't learn how to develop economics in terms of controlling land, labor, and resources
Mm-hmm.
where we live.
Absolutely.
So we control the economic, politics, and culture where we live.
Let me ask you this, Baba. Let me jump in here. I was going to ask you about that faithful meeting. That was a lot. I was
Yeah.
going to ask, how did that? Because obviously that had an impact on you. Because Malcolm X is still Superman. Malcolm X, I always give him
Oh, yeah.
credit. as being my introduction into consciousness, because the autobiography is something that should be it should be mandatory reading in all houses. This is it.
That book and Message to the Black Man by Elijah Muhammad.
Absolutely. That was next.
Read those two books.
That was next. You read them in tandem. But
Yeah.
how did that shape your future? Because obviously, you know, you didn't start out as Professor Baba Smalls. You came from South Carolina. You met the minister, and then after that, how did that?
No, I didn't
set you afire?
accidentally meet him. I came from South Carolina to meet him.
Absolutely.
No, I want you to understand. I came here to meet him.
Yeah.
My mother and father lived in New York. You know,
Mhm.
a lot of people move north to find jobs, to have better living. Me and my siblings, we lived with our grandparents.
Mhm.
And I saw Malcolm X on television. And I asked my mother, could I come up to New York to meet him? So the summer of '63, when she came home and my brother drove us back and forth, she drove me with him to New York. And I think I was there about a month and a half when I met him. Because what they were doing in Front of Food Family, they were giving out flyers against the March on Washington.
Oh, wow.
On the March on Washington, that it was a fraud and that it was something that the government had taken over. And so I wanted to meet him, and I'd gone to Mosque number 7 2 or 3 times, but every time I went there, he was not there. One day, the brothers told me he was on 141st Street. And
Right.
And I thought, I work right there, you know, at the Food Family Supermarket. And so that's how I met him. And he did have a major impact on me. Even I didn't know anything about him, really. Didn't.
Right.
That was a 10-minute or so encounter.
Sure.
And in my brain, the concept of a Malcolm X loomed large. So when I went back to South Carolina, I was in the 12th grade then. And I wanted to be Malcolm X. And I remember debating a very beautiful friend of mine who I'm still friends with, one of my classmates. And she took the side of Dr. King, and I took the position of Malcolm X. I didn't even know what Malcolm X's position was. I just know he was militant, and he wanted to deal with the white man. And so everybody in the class thought I was like out of my mind. But that last year in high school, I was also in the Naval Reserves at the time to make a little bit of money to help the family.
Sure.
And the whites got wind of my thinking and my views. And so I had gotten a deferment to go to college. My commander was Ray Roberts, a beautiful brother. He was white from Boston, but I call Ray a brother because that's what Ray was. He was my brother.
Absolutely.
And so he had gotten me a deferment to go to college. I had 7 scholarships. I chose Savannah State. I played football, and I was pretty good at it. And other whites and Ray would like fly to Boston to see his family on the weekend in his private plane. And he would fly me with him and drop me off in Brooklyn at Floyd Bennett Naval Air Station so I could come visit my parents, pick me up on Sunday. Well, when the other whites down there heard that this Negro is flying in a plane with this white man on the weekend,
it was a problem.
They lost their minds. Like, serious. They were low key with it, but they lost their minds. And so one day I got a call. The principal called me and told me that they wanted me to come to the Naval Reserve Center. So I went to the center, and this yeoman had a bunch of papers for me to sign. And I'm doing, Ray had always told me, don't sign nothing you don't read. So I'm reading everything. And I remember the last few, he said, Small, I got to get back to work, man. I'm only on my lunch break to do this. And he slipped in my request for active duty order.
Oh, wow.
That's one of the 2 papers I didn't read. Right? But I don't know this. And a couple of weeks before graduation, the principal called me again and says, your commander would like for you to come down to the Naval Reserve Center. I go down to leave high school, go down to the center, and he's talking to me. He says, I thought you were going to college. I said, yeah, I'm going to college. He said, you going to Savannah State? I said, yes, I'm going to Savannah State. He reached in his drawer and he pulled out orders for me and threw it on the desk and said, no, you're not. I said, what is that? He said, those are your active duty orders You've got to leave home on the day of graduation, take a bus to Pensacola, Florida Naval Air Station. You are now in the Navy.
Wow.
And then he
a
asked me,
seaman.
yeah, he said, did anybody ever had you sign any papers? And I said, yeah, you almost so and so. He said, I told you to read everything. And I was like, there was a couple of sheets I didn't read. And that's when they got me.
And
But
that's
I
when they
went
got
on active duty. And I was on active duty from June 4th, June 6th, I think, until the first week in August. The same brother Ray goes to Bathurst, Washington, get me relieved from active duty so that I can go back to college. Right? And he pulled it off. I don't know how he pulled it off, but he pulled it off.
He got it done. He got it done. So look, I want to go back just a little bit, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because I was listening to you in another interview that you did, and you talked about how just what you're explaining, you were so impressed by Malcolm X. You were so impressed by his mental aptitude, right? And how concise and how he made it plain. Like we all love how he makes it plain.
Right.
You said you lived in the countryside. Professor Small lived in the countryside in South Carolina, but he worked in the city. No, he went to school in the city. And he said something interesting. He said the country black folks did not want to beg whites to be a part of their world. My question to you is, Baba, at what point did we begin to beg for entry inside of the white world? When did being adjacent to white society become a priority?
In what became the civil rights movement of the 1950s and 60s. I mean, we'd had integration situations in the country from the time we've been here. We've always been integrated with white folks from one degree from the 1600s forward.
Yes, sir.
But it had not been the policy of the black community.
Mm-hmm.
And you don't get a real massive black community in the millions until after the Civil War.
Mm.
And for the first part of that, from 1865 to 1945, we're pretty much cool with being segregated. We got all black communities. We didn't have one Wall Street. We had 20 or 30 black Wall Streets.
Exactly.
Not more. And we had our own bus companies, our own taxi cab companies, our own insurance companies, our own real estate companies, our own banks, etc. We had all of these things. But something occurs after 1945 when black soldiers came back home. And there was a movement that was being led to some degree by the NAACP.
Mm.
The NAACP by this time, which started out as a black control organization, is now mainly a Jewish white control organization from the top down.
Right.
And they're setting a lot of the policy on how we fight and what we fight for, like Brown versus the board.
Mm-hmm.
Black people didn't start fighting to integrate schools. They started fighting for money for their schools. See, people don't know this. There was two Brown versus the board cases.
Mm.
One was in Washington, D.C., and one was in Topeka, Kansas, right? The one in Washington, D.C. is asking for proportional return of the dollar. Give us our money, as our tax money, the way you took it from us, and we will build better schools for ourselves, science labs, better teachers, and so forth. And you had a young black sister in, I think, West Virginia, who had led a fight to be enrolled in a white school. And she won it. This is before Brown versus the board. But one of the biggest case was in Camden, South Carolina. And that was a case, my grandfather was involved in that case, and my father and mother. And led one of the leaders from our town was Reverend George Besselou, who was fighting in that case to get proportional return of the dollar. Ain't asked. See, we had to walk to school. White kids were taking buses to school. We had to walk 5-10 miles to school, right? And so black folks were saying, give us our tax money back and let us buy buses for our children. In the meantime, black churches were providing the buses so black children wouldn't have to walk to school, while white children were riding on state school buses.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
So the fight is around things like these, right? To get better books, to get science labs, to get chemistry labs in our schools. And so black people saying, give us the money so we can compete with you. And then this Topeka, Kansas case came up. where the NACP is orchestrating it. In that case, the young lady Brown, her father is the president of the NACP in Topeka, Kansas. So when they bring that case forward, talking about what amounts to integration, that case was wed with the South Carolina case, which was before the Supreme Court, and the Washington, D.C. case, which was before the Supreme Court, and the West Virginia case. All of those was fused into one under Brown versus the board.
Ah.
You understand? But they gave the Topeka, Kansas,
the notoriety or the recognition.
Yeah, not just that. They gave their what their intent was. They wanted to integrate. The other three cases was talking about proportional return of the dollar. Is that we give them Negroes all that money, they're gonna have better schools than we got.
Right.
So we can't do that. So we're gonna have to let them disband the black schools and come into the white schools.
Right.
And that's when things started going downhill for us.
Oh wow.
And we turned control of the minds of the black children
to the
into
white
the hands of the white racists.
No, it makes sense.
Stephen Biko said it in South Africa in the 70s. The greatest weapon in the hands of the oppressor is the mind of the oppressed.
Yeah.
Listen to it again now. The greatest weapon in the hands of the oppressor is the mind of the oppressed. So what we did with integration, with school integration, was to take the mind of the oppressed and put it in the hands of the oppressor. That's what integration did. Took the minds of the oppressed, especially integration where education was concerned, and we put them in the hands of the oppressor. And the second thing that occurs from integration, that's the educational aspect of integration. But then the economic aspect of integration had us shift our spending from black businesses
to white businesses.
Right. And the black businesses slowly went out of business.
Absolutely.
Okay, that mindset, which is now being taught in the churches, where we are under for 2-3 hours every week, the majority of our people is under the mind control of one or two individuals.
The minister and the assistant minister.
Yeah. And this is the place of your worship of God. So if this is where you're getting your directions from, this is where you're going to flow and go.
Right.
Okay. Now, the so-called civil rights movement started out as a civil rights movement for desegregation. It wasn't a movement for integration. It evolved into that as the whites took control of its direction.
Absolutely.
And so when we studied, there's a good book out on this. It's called Plural but Equal. Tell all you people to buy that book. It's called Plural but Equal. And it's by a brother, I know I got it right here on the shelf somewhere. It's by Dr. Harold Cruz.
I know Harold Cruz.
Yeah. The Crisis of the Negro Intellectual.
Yep, Negro Intellectual. Yep.
Okay.
I know Harold Cruz.
A great and extraordinary black writer.
Absolutely.
But because he was not pro-liberal white left,
they didn't give him recognition.
But this is the book.
Plural but Equal. Yep. Y'all see that, brothers and sisters. Check it out. Blacks and white.
Blacks and minorities in American Plural
Society. No,
Plural
that's
but Equal, Dr. Harold Cruz.
Absolutely.
You got to get this book because it's an analysis of what happens in the civil rights movement.
I'm going to check it out.
Someone who was a part of it and living in that time. He taught at Columbia University, so he was no slouch. He was teaching at one of the top universities in the country.
Absolutely.
And I think you will also find that Black Wall Street that we all talk about. I know I'm getting a cold, so you see me rubbing my nose.
It's okay.
I'm trying to drink water all day to try and get rid of this thing. But Black Wall Street that we know of, Tulsa, Oklahoma, the Greenwood community that was burned to the ground. What nobody tells you is that it was built back better than before. Black Wall Street got wiped out by integration.
Absolutely. I read that.
Listen to me now. It got burned to the ground. And we all talk about it got burned to the ground and all people dying in the rioting. Yes, all that happened. But the black people built their community back. They went to court. They didn't win all of the cases, but they won a lot of the court cases. And they got money and they built their community back. And it was actually considered better than before Because now it was deliberate and it was planned, right? And it was integration that killed the black community in Tulsa, Oklahoma, like it killed Black Wall Street in many of the towns in America, from Raleigh, North Carolina, to Charlotte, to Columbia, South Carolina, to Charleston. We died because we changed our spending habits, because we were told by our leaders to change our spending habits and to integrate our money into the white system. It wasn't that direct, it was a psychological maneuvering, but it worked. And the Black economic foundation in America was destroyed by the economic results of the integration movement and the changing of our spending habits from Black businesses to white businesses without understanding the consequences of that. Because I guess Black people assume that white business would come in partnership with Black business, and white banks would thus loan more money to Black business to develop themselves on the par with the white business. But that never happened.
Nah.
Black
Nope.
business just went out of business.
They went under. Listen, what you saying is so accurate and true. What you saying reminds me of the message of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. It was something, I got to go back to it on YouTube. I found a podcast, and he talked about the civil rights movement. He talked about what you're saying, and he talked about how the Honorable Elijah Muhammad was targeted because, absolutely what you're saying. He was not
Yeah.
only teaching
He
socioeconomics,
taught us to do for self what
do
others
for
would pay
self.
for.
Yeah, do for self. And then that would collapse this whole capitalist system. But let me keep moving, because we coming back. We're going somewhere.
No, that's what whites are afraid of, but it would not have collapsed the capitalist system. It would have collapsed white hegemony over the capitalist system.
Absolutely.
You got to be clear, because they're trying to play games on you. The
Absolutely.
white hegemony and dominance over the capitalist system would have gotten collapsed.
Yes, sir, Baba. Yes, sir.
And there would
Yes.
have been a reasonable partnership between blacks and whites economically. But racism and racial dominance didn't allow for that. So racial terrorism, that's the Klan and the right wing, and racial betrayal, that's the liberal left wing,
Right.
destroyed the black business structures and banking system in America.
Yep. It was a
And we
concert.
still haven't woke up to white left liberal manipulation that keeps us from holding power. If you want to have a class study of it, study the role of black power in the Democratic Party over the last 20 years. And you'll see how white liberals would not allow for blacks, even though their numbers is bigger in the party than the white liberals' numbers, but the white liberals' hold on power is greater than the blacks.
Absolutely. Hey, Baba, listen. That was a lot. Look, something else you mentioned is crazy that we're getting to finances and economic issues within the community. For those of you guys watching who don't know, Baba was close to one of the legendary artists of our times, right? In Tupac Amaru Shakur, right? His family was pretty familiar with the brother and his family. Baba worked with Asada, I'm pretty sure, Matulu, who is the younger brother to. I read in the book where Afeni was married to one of
Lumumba
the.
Shakur,
She
the
was married to
oldest.
Lumumba at first,
Yeah,
the oldest, and then later on, that's what people don't say. Later on, she became the wife of Matulu. She was one of several wives, is what the biography said. But Tupac, I saw where you mentioned Pac had mentioned to you before he passed that him and Biggie were trying to infiltrate distribution. Now, this is what I want to say. Sam Cooke, Jay Prince, Dame Dash, Irv Gotti, and Suge Knight were all trying to create a black-owned distribution company. Now, you guys go back and research what happened to each one of them, right? Because they all befell on problems, coincidentally, to have control of black music. Pac and Biggie were trying to monopolize black music, the distribution of black music as well. So it appears that black economics, or the threat of it, Baba, will make you an enemy of the state very, very quickly. Maybe quicker than anything else. Do you see the Black economic footprint in people like Dr. Cosby, Michael Jackson, of course, Pac and Big, R. Kelly, and more recently,
Prince.
Puffy and Jay-Z, Prince as well,
Leave Prince out.
Prince as well. But more
Remember,
recently,
remember when he changed his thing to the artist formerly known as Prince?
absolutely.
And he began, instead of waiting for the others to distribute his stuff, he Prince was the one that began to sell his stuff over the internet. That's what created that whole, what's that concept called? Um,
Streaming.
no, that's before streaming. Um, where you can buy the music over the internet, where you can sell your music over the internet.
I know
But
what you're
anyway,
talking about.
that was Prince that messed up their system, right? Uh, but the point is, distribution is the key to the record industry. Well, it was, but it's not that much anymore because now the whole thing, the technology have changed it.
Right.
Back then, it was the key. If you didn't go along with the program, you'll stop. You can make all the music you wanted, but it stayed in the warehouse. If it didn't leave the warehouse, you made no money.
Right.
You know, and if the people who were controlling you didn't put it on the radio station, you got no awards. You know, and so you could be the best musician in the world, but that's where they killed you. So at that time, parking him from what he told me, that's what they were trying to do. He wanted to talk to me and get some advice because we never did have that meeting because he never made it back from Las Vegas. This is while he was in Vegas when we had that conversation. But he was very clear that they wanted to take control of their music, the distribution of their music, because that's where the capital was. You know,
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
that would determine the worth of the artist's work.
Hmm.
Right now, somebody else was manipulating and controlling that commodity in the marketplace by controlling the distribution of the commodity.
Right. Absolutely. But like you said, you don't really see that now because the internet is so robust, and now the artist can speak and get directly to the consumer. There's no
Mhm.
need for distribution because a lot of it is that's
But,
what I
but
said
even a
streaming.
lot of that is still being controlled. The technology of that is still being controlled by the same people that used to handle distribution.
Right.
Okay, they're now into social media, and they're
Hmm.
controlling that too.
Yeah.
So, um, but the
Absolutely.
artists have more control today than he has ever had. We could
Hmm.
see it with Jay-Z and Beyonce, who've learned to manage the system well, and a few others who have done manage the system well.
Absolutely. But yeah.
But even there, they'll come at you like they're coming at Sister Beyonce. What she did a couple of weeks ago at that bowl game have no equal, and will probably have no equal. But they still want to criticize her and put her down. I saw all of this stuff last night, all across the world, New Year's celebration, and I don't see our queen. She ain't there. How you gonna have one of the most fantastic young artists in the world,
Hmm.
who can put together? I know she has others working on the choreography. Some of the best choreography I've seen in the world. You know, music that depicts black culture. She did the piece at one of the bowl games on the Black Panther. He did another piece on the Orishas and the Yoruba religion and Oshun. And they go like, we don't want to see all that black stuff. You know?
Right.
And when she decides she gonna go back to the roots of black music, most black people come from the South. In the country, country music is black music.
Right.
White folks in the last 2 decades have cut black people out of country music, but country music is black music. The banjo is the black premier instrument, okay? But they call it Kentucky bluegrass. That's black country rhythm, black country blues singing. So all she did was went back to her country Texas roots and dropped it,
Yeah, because she's a Houstonian.
and it was too much for them to handle.
She's a Houstonian. But
Mhm.
absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. But yeah, I absolutely see like with Puffy and Jay-Z, I always when something happens, Baba, the first thing I do is look for the financial connection. What are these guys doing financially that is going to, like you said, tear down that uh
Hedgeman.
hegemony? There you go. It's gonna tear down that dominance. And a
Mhm.
lot of times what I like to tell people is what you have to do, again, you have to start there, because they'll always show you the social ill, but they'll never show you the business savvy that these artists have. They talk so much about Michael Jackson being such a great entertainer. We heard about Prince, but we didn't hear nearly as much about Mike until maybe later. We heard about all the investments. We heard about everything he was doing behind the scenes. So yeah, I absolutely wanted to get into that. Like what you said, there's absolutely
Well,
a
it's this same white dominance of economics in America.
mhm.
Music industry is a formidable generator of economics, of
Sure,
capital,
sure,
and
yes, sir.
they want to be in control of that
Hmm.
because Black musicians is at the core and the center of producing that capital.
That's right.
So they have to stay in control of that.
Hmm.
We saw Michael. I'm sure Michael was murdered
Of
when he was
course, of
back here.
course.
Um, the you know he was about to take the world like no one could have done but Michael Jackson, except he had a message that they didn't want heard by the world. And his theme song was "They Don't Care About Us."
Right,
And he opened it up with a speech by Dr. Martin Luther King.
right,
And
right.
so they were saying, "Oh hell no! In 6 months he'll have the whole world against us." He would have been greater than Malcolm and Dr. King put together in terms of taking a message forward.
Right, right.
And they killed that boy.
Getting it out there. Absolutely.
Um,
A-
Nothing could have stopped Michael Jackson at that point in terms of the concerts around the world. He was beloved by whites, by browns, by yellows, by
mhm,
blacks, all over the continent. There was no artist that could have reached his level.
mhm.
But it
I
was the
agree.
message that he was about to carry forth that they did not want going, because socialization is how you get your values, interests, and principles. And music is one of the greatest socializing tools out here in terms
Mhm.
of giving your values and interests and principles. And
Absolutely.
the school system is the second largest socializing instrument. But the school system don't have the power of music in terms of socialization. So if you're carrying the right message in the music, you're gonna change the world.
Hey, that's right. Well, that's what Pac said. I might not change the world, but I'm definitely gonna spark the brain of
Mhm.
whoever it is that changes the world. So that's what you just said. So I also know that you are a super brothers and sisters. Professor Small is a super duper spiritual guy, and he talks.
Mhm.
When you search him out online, you can find him anywhere. You'll see that he's done a lot of work, a lot of lectures, a lot of talks about African spirituality. And I something that came to my mind, Professor Smalls, is that I would love for you for the audience. Could you maybe briefly, right? Not super expensive, but can you connect the three Abrahamic faiths, right? Christianity, Judaism, and Islam. How do they connect now to African spirituality? What have they taken from African spirituality?
Well, neither one of those three were a spiritual system in its genesis.
Mm,
They were political, ideological systems. They were social, cultural systems, but they were not spiritual systems. They never did become spiritual systems. They became religious systems, right? But they started out as social and political systems. They were political ideologies,
gotcha.
um, political ideologies that became religions.
Mm,
But the political ideology is built on historical folklore, allegory, and fragments of history of African peoples.
mm-hmm.
And so those folklore and fragments of histories and allegories that African peoples told in their effort to try and teach about the universe and its relationship to man, that's what the whites in the Middle East or Northeast Africa ran off with and created as the three Abrahamic religions.
Oh
Um,
wow.
there's nothing Abrahamic about its genesis. Um, they come out of Kemet. out of Egypt, out of Africa, the values, the principles, this construct, all right, the concept of God. When you look at how it's constructed, nothing in Judaism was there before it was in Africa. You find most of it in the 18th dynasty with the Akhenaten, the King Tut, Amenephis, his father. These teachings is already there. You can study the Shabaka stone, the Memphite theology. All of the elements of Christianity, Judaism, and Islam is already in the Memphite theology. You can look at the Assyrian uh, uh, theology, and you see all the elements of Christianity, including the mother and child and the virgin birth, is already there. Okay. The story of Christ, when you see the Last Supper, you see the man sitting and you see around his head is a light because they're saying that his brain is the sun.
Right.
He's Ra. And around him is 12 dudes, the 12 months. And if you break the 12 months down, if you look at that picture that Da Vinci painted, he's got 12 guys around him, which represent the 12 months. And the 12 is broken into 4 groups of 3, which represent the 4 seasons.
Absolutely.
Okay. And the sign of the zodiac. Okay. The 12 signs of the zodiac. So the Last Supper, the painting that Da Vinci paints, you got to see it in the context of European hieroglyphics of the day, because 99% of the Europeans are illiterate, so you can't write a letter to them. So you write a painting to them.
Right.
The story. And so what you then see is the story of Osiris, a Set, and a Sar. Isis, Horus, and Osiris.
Heru. Right.
And so that story was new even for Kemet. That story is older than Kemet. You know, when the Ethiopians celebrate their New Year on the 11th of August, that's what they're celebrating. But the people we call Ethiopians now, they're not the Ethiopians of yesteryear. They're the Aksumite people. But that's cool. They're south of Kemet, and they were already celebrating these concepts. But what they were celebrating was nature and the cosmology and the ecology. Cosmology, people I mean by the stars, the moons, the planets, and their movement. And the astronomy that explains it, the science of astronomy we developed to interpret it, and astrology, which we developed to explain it. The one interprets it, and the other explains it to the masses. So astronomy interprets cosmology, and astrology interprets for the masses who don't have the scientific knowledge to understand astronomy, so that they can use what the universe is doing to know when to plant their crops, when to plant certain kind of crops, when to harvest, when to irrigate the field, when to mate the animals, et cetera, et cetera. All of these things, even when to cleanse your own body, all of these things are determined by the movement of the stars and the moon and the sun and so forth. And that's how we get the calendar. The calendar of today is an African calendar, just with some minor adjustments by the Romans. Okay. So much of what is called Western civilization is African civilization with a twist.
Remixed, sampled, huh?
A remake by Europeans. And remake at the bottom realm because they didn't have the capacity and still don't to comprehend the totality of the African spiritual system. So they took fragments from the periphery, right? Which for them was an uphill movement, okay? And created the society we see they've created. That's why so much of their society, even their religious ones, you could talk about the Crusades and all this back and forth killing of millions of people. It's all predicated on domination, destruction, and death. Christianity is predicated on domination, destruction, and death. All you have to do is look at the Spanish Inquisition.
Right.
And you'll see something that's almost as bad as Hitler, Nazi Germany.
Absolutely. No, absolutely. Hey, I appreciate
it. I don't know what more we can say. The thing they call the church, for instance, it is founded in Turkey, right? What is now Turkey. That was the Eastern Roman Empire, which historians call the Byzantine Empire.
Gotcha.
That's where what we know as Christianity evolved out of the Kemetic or the African system into what is Christianity.
Mm-hmm.
And then it takes roots in Turkey and in Egypt and the Egyptian Coptic Church. And it is out of those two churches come the Ethiopian Church. Okay, the Ethiopian Christianity is not an African Genesis formation. It is an Africanized formation. Okay, and the Ethiopian Church will be under the dominance of the Coptic Egyptian Church bishop until the 20th century, when Haile Selassie would petition to have its own bishops.
Mm.
But the Ethiopian Church is 500 years older than the Catholic Church and 1,000 years older than the Protestant churches of Europe. So Ethiopia develops in Africa, Christianity develops in Africa and moves into Europe. You understand? It develops in
Absolutely.
Egypt, Ethiopia, Sudan, and Turkey. And then it moves into Europe. Remember, Turkey is not Europe. Turkey is Northeast Africa bordering on Asia.
Yes, sir.
Okay. And
yes,
so
sir.
this is where, and the Judaism piece, so much of that is just outright straight copy right out of Kemet. Straight up plagiarism, which you don't see happening until after the so-called Babylonian captivity. That's when you begin to hear about a Torah. Prior to that, there is no Torah. There's no book of Moses. So it takes some study, and it isn't something you can dissolve in 1 minute in a 5-minute dissertation. But history would tell you that all of it had its genesis in Africa, and they missed the mark. They didn't comprehend or truly understand the depth of the system. They didn't understand the spiritual aspect.
The Europeans.
Right. They got caught up in the intellectual aspect.
Gotcha.
That's what they could handle. They got caught up in the mechanical aspects and the plagiarizing without understanding the essence of what they were plagiarizing.
Absolutely. No, I understand it. I understand it. I saw, Baba, where you talked about, you did a little bit of expanding and building on Ifa and voodoo or voodoo.
Mm-hmm.
And it was beautiful because I had read, I've looked into voodoo, which is basically the study of God and man, right?
Mm-hmm.
Relating to nature as well, right? Internal, external, the way I understand it. But I wanted you, just the way that you explained it, with the faiths, you know
I
what I
can't
mean?
do it just the way I explained it.
Yeah,
once you explain something, you can never do that again.
Look, hopefully you'll try. Hopefully we get it.
Well, one of the things we need to understand, then I'll let you come in, is that what we call Judaism, Christianity, and Islam, it's just an African thing that was improperly put together, improperly explained, And even in all of those 3 books, it tells you that God is in you.
Absolutely.
And there's none of those books that tell you God is up there. Not one.
Absolutely.
It is the interpreters of the theology and the theologians who interpret the books for the masses.
That's
that
right.
tell people this thing is up there.
That's right. That's right.
You were in the Muslim community, so was I. They had one prayer. It's called the Ikhlas. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Qul huwallahu ahad. Allahu samad. Balam yulad, balam yulid, balam yakuf wanahad. Allahu akbar.
Absolutely.
It says that God is one who begets, none knows begotten.
That's right.
Gives birth to none and no other given birth to by none. There's none like it in heaven. It was trying to tell you, you and the thing is one thing.
That's it.
Now you can find that same prayer in the 18th dynasty Egypt.
Oh wow!
And it's said by Akhenaten, and it goes like this: "O soul God, Aton, you who have given birth to none and you, Aton, who was given birth to by none, and there's none likened unto you in the universe, and only you exist. It's almost word for word the same prayer.
Hey, but
One
that
is,
was earlier. That was
yeah,
sooner that
that
you
was
just said.
thousands of years earlier.
There
The
you
prayer
go.
of Nazareth in the
But listen,
ancient
listen.
times of Egypt.
Hey, Baba, look, that's exactly where I'm segueing into. You talked
Mm,
about them, like you say, remaking it.
mm,
When we think about different spiritualities, I heard you talk about the orishas that dealt with different aspects of Ifa, right?
mhm.
Different things,
Qualities and
people.
attributes.
There you go. Different attributes, different, parts of Ifa.
Mhm,
Now, individuals, what came to my mind is people. I wanted you to connect Ifa and Voodoo and how they connect to people like Noble Drew Ali, the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, and the Father Allah, in a sense where each of these people came to us from us, but they emphasized almost the same thing, but they did it a little bit differently. If that makes sense. I
mhm,
connected them with the Orishas because they were all talking about the same thing, the oneness of man and
mhm,
divinity, what we call God. I just wanted you to connect them, kind of speak on it, because I know you have a level of expertise. Another thing, brothers and sisters, Baba Small was familiar with the Father Allah.
mhm,
Obviously, he was familiar with, maybe didn't meet the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, but knows his work. And I would
mhm,
only assume that you have a great understanding with the noble Jew, the prophet, the noble Drew Ali. So if you could connect
mhm.
them all uh, to the
Right.
Ifa and Vudan, and what they were
Well,
bringing.
remember, Ifa simply means the wisdom of the
Yes.
universe. Voodoo means really the same thing. The word voodoo comes out of the Fon language of the people of Benin
Hmm.
and the Ewe language, the people of Togo.
Hmm.
And pretty much the language, the sister languages.
Hmm.
They're akin to the Yoruba language. And the word means the essence of God within. So if I
Yes.
want to say the essence of God within man, I say voodoo Gazi.
Yes.
That's the essence of the divine in man. If I want to say the essence of the divine in nature, I say voodoo Daha. Meaning, voodoo itself means the essence of God or the essence of the Creator, the
Hmm.
essence of Allah, the essence of Oludumare, the essence of the divine, whatever we call that divine, the essence of that inner thing. Okay. And so when you understand that, then you understand, well, okay, what's this thing about these orishas and these loas? Well, those are simply quality and attributes of the biggest thing.
Hmm.
What the African says, you ain't gonna understand that whole big thing we call God. So you gotta understand the pieces of it that affects you.
Right. Right.
And those pieces in the Yoruba is called Orisha,
Mm.
quality and attributes of God. Those
Yes.
pieces in Voodoo is called Loa, quality and attributes of God. Papa Legba on this side, Oya and Shango on that side. But in Islam, they also have their Loas and their Orishas. Do you know what they are?
I do not, Baba. I'm learning.
And that's why I be saying the teachers of these imams who've made themselves priests, Islam said there is no priesthood in Islam.
Mm.
Let me make that clear again. I want people to hear this. There is no priesthood in Islam. So who are these sheikhs and these mullahs and
Right.
these imams if there's no
Right.
priesthood in Islam?
That's right.
That's another argument. But in Islam, if you want to see the Orishas, it's the 99 pearls of faith. 99 names of Allah and
Yes.
99 qualities and attributes of the divine.
There you
That's
go.
all an Orisha is. That's all a Loa is. That's all a Necha is, the Necha root and
Hmm.
Kemet is. The quality and attributes of the divine as we have been able, meaning we being mankind,
Hmm.
to discern from our study of cosmology and ecology.
Mm.
Understand?
Oh
I'm
yeah.
trying to give you the simplest path so you can see how the thing goes. In Christianity is there, but they only have 12 of them. They call the 12 disciples of Christ.
Right. Right.
You look up each of those English names, each of those names have a quality and an attribute. And so those 12 men were also the 12 qualities in the character of Christ.
Wow.
That were dominant and necessary to be adopted as a part of your character if you want to be Christ-like. And that's what Christianity teaches, if you look at its teaching, how to become Christ-like. And if Christ is the divine, how to become God, like Elijah Muhammad said.
That's it.
That we God.
That's it.
God Allah, Brother Clarence said that of the gods on earth, 5% nation, y'all gods. Brother called me today, say, yo, God, how you doing this new year? And I go, like, hey, God, how you been? It's been a minute. Because we understand we are God having a human experience.
Absolutely.
You know, every living being represents an aspect of the divine essence having this living experience.
Absolutely.
And such, everything that you are calling God is within you to be accessed by you. As long as you're looking up there, you ain't never going to access it.
That's right. That's
but
right.
those who are confusing you count on that you're looking away.
That's right.
Rather than looking within.
That's right.
And if you read well, the Bible, Torah, and the Quran, all of them in multiple places will tell you if you want to find that thing, you have to look within yourself.
That's right.
And that those qualities and attributes, those 99 pearls of faith, those orishas, those loas, those netas, you must develop them as your character.
Right.
And then you see that everybody's really struggling with the same concept under different names and different cultural expressions.
Absolutely.
And trying to put it in place. So when we come back to say the Honorable, who would come first? Noble Drew Ali.
Yes, sir.
Prophet Drew Ali would come first. Drew Ali would go travel, leave America, and he would travel to Egypt. And in Egypt, he was given a certain the secret science, the mystery system. You know, after people don't know how deep the thing goes. There is a mystery system, and even Islam comes out of that mystery system. And I have a book by a young brother. Let me see if I got that. Yeah. He just finished his dissertation, and he published this book. You're gonna get this one. You're gonna have to read this. It's called Islam
and the Ancient Mysteries. Huh.
Yeah.
Volume 1.
Yeah. I'm trying to get it to come up.
The Mystery School. Oh, I can read it. It's a glow, so it's gonna probably, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
The light is.
Islam is an ancient mystery system.
Islam an ancient mystery system.
First attempt. This is one of the best attempts I've seen at doing it. But within the Quran, it tells you about the mystery system. There's certain words in the Quran and phrases that are not even translated. So how can there something be in the Quran that's not translatable? And they usually start with the term Aleph Lam Mim.
Right.
Just to give you a hint. You know, wherever you see Aleph Lam Mim, follow those dots.
Right. Aleph Lam Mim, y'all. Absolutely.
So, but the key thing is all of this history that is producing these religions that we call Abrahamic, all is taking place in one geographical space that's no greater than 500 miles in either direction. If that big, I'm giving it more geography. Okay, over a period of time, resulting from war and internecine wars for centuries. And at the end of each of these violent conflicts, in an attempt to restore the system. And the winners then try to restore the system, but the winners are almost always the people who did not create the system. You understand what I'm saying?
I do.
And so they can only create fragments from the periphery because they don't know the system. They're not the priestcraft. They're not the great scientists. So they say, okay, we can copy their outward practice. We could copy their symbolism, but we don't know their essence. You understand? So when Drew Ali goes home, he's looking for a way to give an identity to his people. And he learns about the Africans in North Africa who was referred to as the Moors by Europeans. The black people never referred to themselves as Moors. And I know me and a lot of the brothers be having a fight over this. Because the word Moor is an anglicization of an older word, which is a Roman word, which means Marouche, which the Romans get from a Greek word, which means Varos, which means black people, black persons. And the Moors is the Anglicization, Anglo, whatever they call that word, of that.
Anglo-Saxon.
Yeah, the Anglicization of that Roman word for black. But the black people didn't call themselves that. But now many of us are over here because it makes that seem like we have an identity, because they did such extraordinary things in the conquest of Europe for 800 years that we want that identity. And Drew Ali brought us that identity back. But we got the identity, then we want the label that the white man put on that identity, which is Moors. But those people call themselves the Gudamas and the Caramantes.
Oh, wow.
Not Berbers, that's a modern name. And there's another name people use, but that's a modern Arab name. They call them, the oldest name known for the people in that region is the Gudamas. The oldest kingdom found in that desert, they named themselves in the cave carving the Gudamas. And we're quite advanced. This is before Kemet. Matter of fact, these are the people who end up, many of them, going to Kemet and building that civilization. They came from the Sahara Desert. But it wasn't a desert then. It was a green savanna. But as it became a desert, we moved away. We moved towards the Atlantic and we moved towards the Nile. And wonderful things happened. But in that process, we also took the ideas of what civilization was with us. So Drew Ali comes back home and he's teaching initially in Newark, New Jersey. But he's attacked by an Arab guy named Muhammad Farad.
Right.
Muhammad Farad. You got to study that history. It's a mystery up in there, right? And so this Muhammad Farad is arrested and goes to jail. And Drew Ali leaves Newark, New Jersey, and goes to Detroit, where again he would find himself competing with a guy named Farad Muhammad.
Wow.
Interesting history.
That's super interesting.
Okay, but Drew Ali brings us an Islamic movement before the Nation of Islam.
Sure, absolutely.
The Morris Temple is an Islamic movement.
That's right.
And but he's teaching us how not to get into conflict with the system. He's teaching us how not to attack the system, but to build the black system, to live a peaceful life,
existence. Sure.
Sure. And build the economic and build the intellectual and build the spiritual aspect of the black community. But Noble Drew Ali, I think it was 1932, his lieutenant was assassinated while Drew Ali was out of town. Everybody knew he was out of town lecturing. But when he comes back into Detroit, he's arrested on suspicion of the assassination, even though he's not in town. Then he gets out of jail on parole, and then he's assassinated 2 weeks later. Now, out of that dust will rise the lost found Nation of Islam in the West.
Absolutely. That's right.
Which will later be known as Nation of Islam.
That's it.
And people like to say how much the Nation of Islam has to do with the Marcus Garvey movement, but it has little to do with the Garvey movement and more to do with the Drew Ali Morris movement.
Absolutely.
But all of them are trying to do the same thing. The Honorable Elijah Muhammad, who's taught by his teacher and his tutor Farad Muhammad, because the Nation of Islam started out, like many organizations, religious organizations, as a study group. Okay. That's teaching the fundamental wisdom of Islam. And what Farad is teaching is that the way the Arabs are bringing it is wrong.
Right.
You, the black man, this is your thing, not the Arab thing.
That's it. Come on. That's right.
And so this is what the messenger is then bringing forward. But he's bringing forward a way of life that gets us away from alcohol, gets us away from cigarettes, anything from pork that pollutes our body.
Any vice.
The quest is to the black man had been beaten down so badly, a large segment of our population was on alcohol or underemployed or unemployed or in jail. And the message is trying to rescue that population, you know, with this wisdom, with this teaching. And it works. It works because the greatest rescue in the history of any civilization of a people who had been beat down and downtrodden, the greatest rescue effort ever is the rescue effort that we saw in the Nation of Islam under the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. And then under the Honorable Elijah Muhammad and Malcolm X. Because when Malcolm X come to the Nation of Islam, it almost barely is existing. What we get to know as the great Nation of Islam happens in 11 years of Malcolm representing the Honorable Elijah Muhammad and carrying the teaching forward into the world. And that teaching was a teaching of how to live an upright life physiologically, mean taking care of your health, how to eat to live, the Message's book that tells us it was still one of the best books on appropriate eating habits.
Absolutely.
How to cleanse yourself, carry yourself clean and upright, get rid of the alcohol, get rid of the cigarette, get rid of the cussing, get rid of the gambling, all of those things that pulled you into a negative socialization position, put those things out of your life.
Yes.
How to take responsibility for the Black community, for the Black family, for the Black wives, and for the Black children and the Black parents as a man in the Black community.
That's right.
That was the teaching. And then how to defend that community. You had some of the best martial artists in Black America coming out of the Nation of Islam.
Steve Muhammad, that's right.
Steve Muhammad, Moses Powell,
That's right.
Little John, and a few more. And so it was teaching how to build a nation within a nation.
Yes, sir.
While appealing to America. If you don't want to let us be fully a nation, then give us the piece, let us go back to Africa. If you don't want us to go back to Africa, then give us the piece of land over here. We can build a separate nation from you. And we're going to take care of our nation because we've already built an army for that nation. We've already built Black men that could lead a nation. We've already built a Black economy that could grow a nation.
That's right.
Because the Nation of Islam was heavy on building Black economics.
That's it.
Fortunately, when the messenger died and Wallace took over, he destroyed the economic foundation of the nation, which was a big mistake. It was a big mistake. It was the same mistake Dr. King and the others made with that integration movement as a thrust of the civil rights movement. You know?
Wow. Man, I'm just listening, loving it. The one that you didn't talk about was the father.
Brother Clarence, Brother Father.
Yes.
Yeah, I was with him, me and some of them, the night he died. You know,
oh, wow.
We had taken over the students from City College, of which I was one. We had taken over a piece of land between 125th and 126th Street and 7th Avenue and Lenox Avenue, which we call Reclamation Site Number 1.
Mm-hmm.
Because we had planned to take over more city property, right? And they wanted to build a state office building there, which they finally did build after we were ousted. And this one night we were all sitting, and Brother James, who was one of the what do they call them? The original born, firstborn.
Yeah, firstborn, absolutely.
Yeah,
First 9, yes, sir.
Yeah. And so we was all sitting over there, and God Allah was there, and we were talking to about one or two. And those of us who were sleeping over in the tents on the site, we went back, and we were all lock and loaded in those days. You had to move like it was moving because it was like that then. Even though we would have probably all got killed in a good gunfight with the system because they had more soldiers than we did, more equipment than we did, but we didn't care. We were doing what we were doing, trying to make the message, the statement we were trying to make.
Mm-hmm.
And he left them at home just before I went back. Me and WP and Billy, we went back across the street. And that morning we woke up to the fact of his death, that he had been assassinated as he had reached his apartment building. And so no one ever knew where it came from. Was it the feds? Some said it was the drug people, not Nicky Barnes, Frank Lucas. A lot of people put it as Frank Lucas doorstep. But I always saw Frank Lucas and thought of Frank Lucas as being a member, a CIA agent. I never. They made a movie of him with Denzel Washington, and so that gave him credibility. But no one, the CIA wasn't allowing no one to bring no doping bodies out of Vietnam onto any American military base. Okay, whoever buy that shit is crazy. That's their operation, just like crack was the CIA operation. Okay,
Right.
the heroin then was the CIA operation, and Frank Lucas was their man.
Wow.
That's why he didn't spend any time in prison to talk about. You know, but they made a movie about him, and they kind of glorified.
They did glorify him. I was gonna say he got glorified with that movie.
I just want to tell the story. No, you glorified a CIA pimp masquerading as a drug dealer, murdering his own people. You know? And a lot of people felt that he was the hand behind the death of God Allah. But if he was, in the same way the FBI and CIA used others to kill Malcolm, they used him to kill God Allah.
Right. Wow. Something I wanted to say. That's beautiful. That the way you put it all together. This book, you were talking about the black divinities, right? Coming out of Nigeria, coming out of the continent, right? This book, you guys, y'all should check it out. I had the brother on.
When we said black divinities, we got to be careful, right? Because the black God is only in your mind.
Gotcha.
There ain't no black dude walking around and say, yo, I'm the God. Oh, Ludamari, I'm God, black Allah. No, there ain't no being that's a God, okay?
I'm with you.
God is every and all things at once. It can only be that. If you're going to be omnipotent, omnipotent, omnipresent, and supreme, nothing can occupy time and space but you.
I'm with you.
Let me say it again now. I want the people to be with us. If you're going to be omnipotent, omnipotent, omnipresent, and supreme, then nothing else can occupy time and space but you. That means nothing exists but God. So in Ghana, they got it right. They got something called Jinyami. Nothing exists but God. Some shorten say none but God. But what it means is nothing exists but God. Absolutely. Then what are we?
What that makes us God. That makes us God.
We are expression of aspects of that essence, having our peculiar experience, meaning we contain the totality of what that thing is.
That's it.
Which makes us the possibility of what that thing is.
No, I get it. I understand it.
You got it.
Understand. Oh, yeah. But all those people you were talking about, they're right in here.
Yes. Yep, we're God having the human experience in our own peculiar way. In the way that in this one finger right here, I take that much of it, and there's billions of little cells. If you put them on a microscope, they all look alike, but every one of them is different.
That's right.
And those billions of little cells have a Pan-African relationship with this finger. If they get to fussing with each other, I would disappear because they would part. If these cells that make me move apart, I disappear. But it is the unity of all these tiny little life forms that we cannot see without a microscope that cause me to be. It's their working relationship.
Absolutely. I love it.
That working relationship is an imitation of how the universe itself works.
So within, so without. Yeah. Absolutely.
And so when the ancestors talk about God, the divine, they were talking about the totality of everything that exists.
Absolutely. Listen.
As divinity.
I love it, Baba. Listen. I have this is the part of the interview where we go into a couple of topics that have to do with the niche that is the Lead with Logic podcast. I tell people at this point, what I do is I take the controversial, the sensational, and the mundane, and through objective data, books, articles, peer-reviewed journals, documentary clips. I now extract the knowledge, wisdom, and understanding so that you can live life in 3D and your enlightenment can be enhanced, right? A brand of saying in the podcast. First of all, at this point, I want to tell you guys, if you're watching, go hit that like and subscribe button to check this out. Also, make sure you follow Professor Smalls. We're going to get all his meetings before he gets out of here. But Lead with Logic is a brand of saying and a podcast. It's a brand of clothing that I have. I have hats, right? So you go to leadwithlogic7.com, leadwithlogic7.com. Pick you up some gear. It's hoodie season. You know, you guys, we got good hoodies, t-shirts, and also hats. It's a saying. It
and
means
lead with logic is a good concept.
absolutely.
A good concept to
Yes.
lead logic.
Yes.
We gave the world logic.
That's right.
You know, read the book Stolen Legacy.
Yes.
Open up your eyes. It'll tell you all about these concepts, ideas, and principles around knowledge and understanding mathematics and science and logic, rhetoric and music, which comes straight out of Kemet and goes straight into Greece and into the rest of Europe.
Yes. I think that's Jackson, right? Is that Jackson who wrote that?
Yeah, George James.
James. I knew it starts with a J. I have it around here somewhere. But yeah, the moniker for Lead with Logic is letting enlightenment and divinity win in this harsh level of God's infinite creation. So yes, I appreciate y'all. Look, so Baba, we're gonna talk about education real quick. Malcolm mentioned education being the key to freeing our people. I would ask, what kind of education, though, right? Because we've already established that in the public school, not even charters or private schools these days teach knowledge of self or even practical, vocational, or financial literacy in the schools. So where can we get this education from, Baba?
You should get it from your household, your living room. No, education comes from the word to educate. It's a Greek word, right? It means to bring what's inside out. So the school systems in America and in the West is set up to do just the opposite. They try to put something from the outside in. Think about it for a minute now. If the word educate means to bring something that's inside out, but your system is trying to take something from the outside and put it in.
Right.
And then have you regurgitate it.
That's right.
So what's just right there, that tells you what's wrong with the system. The concept of education itself is wrong. What the system should be doing, and this is what they did in ancient Kemet, and Stolen Legacy will give you that educational system that they used in Kemet. They gave you the science to bring the thing inside out. They gave you the logic. They gave you the geometry. They gave you the math, arithmetic. They give you the rhetoric. They gave you the music. They gave you all of the tools necessary to bring the divine out.
Yes, sir.
And that's what the whites is fighting against. They do not want you to bring the divine out. So instead of giving you the tools to bring the divine out, they're giving you the tools to keep the divine in.
Absolutely.
You know?
Absolutely. Yeah. So right at home, Baba, right? It starts right in your living room, brothers and sisters, with
And
certain.
so, yeah, the knowledge of self should start with your family and never end. And what you go out is to get the tools to help you better bring what's inside of you out.
Yes.
When someone have a thought, that comes from inside and out. Every inventions that ever happened in the world, all the technology that exists from AI to whatever from inside the mind of a man or a woman. So if you have the right tools, you can bring the genius of the divine out. Even with bad tools, we bring it out. But what would happen if we had the right tools? And study Stolen Legacy, all the tools are mentioned in there.
I'm going to go back and look at that book. I'm going to dig that book. I got it around here somewhere. Bob, I'm going to go back and look at it.
Oh, yeah, everyone should get a copy of it.
Yeah, absolutely.
And, you will be surprised how the system has manipulated us by telling us it's teaching us something, and they're trying to constantly make you think you got to put something in. So if you're straining to bring something in, which is almost impossible to do, the something that's in you is always making its way out. But if you have the proper tools, you can bring it out in the appropriate manner and use it in the appropriate way. But when it comes out, it's going to come out anyway because it's necessity that dictates that it manifests.
Yes,
Right?
sir.
Just for the survival of the species. And you could check this going back. It's like we be crying, "Oh, grandma done that, papa done died." Mom, nobody dies.
Right.
Your parents create themselves as you before they die.
That's right.
But let's say that again, because people didn't get that, went right over their heads. When your mother and father have sex and give birth to you, they had the only thing they can give birth to is themselves. So when you're born, you're your mother and father going forward. And as that body there and now fade away, you now become them in a continuum. So you are your ancestors. And as you're the sum total of your mother and father was the sum total of your grandparents, and they were the sum total of your great parents, and they were the sum total of your great great parents. Well, you're the sum total of all of them.
Absolutely.
They call it genes, but call it whatever. And each of those genes is the memory and experience of every one of those millions of lives that came before you and who now live as you.
Absolutely.
Who now live as you.
I'm with you, Baba. I'm with you.
You sure? I don't want you to be falling out of your chair.
Nope. I'm not. He said, "Fine. You crazy, Baba."
Trying to say a prayer in another language I don't understand or something. Yeah.
No, you good. You got it. Listen, I was looking for this guy. What is his name? He's like a Palestinian brother, and he's eerily similar to Malcolm X. You know who I'm talking about, Baba. He holds his hand. Whenever you see him, he has on the black suit, the white shirt, and the black tie, and his whole cadence is similar to Minister Malcolm. And his critique is spot on. He be criticizing the hell out of America, and he be hitting the points. It's salami, or it starts with a
Yeah, I think
SH.
I've seen him once. I'm sure I recorded some of his stuff.
I'm looking for it as you were speaking. That's where I was going next. How should we, Baba, just some current events, how should Black people interpret that murder of the United Healthcare CEO? And I ask that because when you think about revolutions in past years, like you talked about, I found where you were with the, I want to say the Split Brothers, which was the Blood Brothers. When you look at the Black Liberation Army, when you look at what is it? What was that move? When you look at Move in Philly, what happened to them?
RAM, Revolutionary Action Movement.
There you go. There you go. That's right. That's right. It wasn't just the Panthers, brothers and sisters. It was a lot of different movements
The
that
Panthers, for some reason, the media focus on the Panthers.
They do.
At that time, and there's a lot of reasons. I don't want to get into critique of none of that.
Right.
But there were other formations out here
For
that
sure.
the Panthers was given credit for doing a lot of things they didn't do, but these other formations did.
Oh, wow.
So, but that's history.
No, I got it. It makes sense.
Huh?
But no, it makes sense. I was gonna say it mentioned because I want to hear what your analysis of this. When you think we have had people who were liberation fighters, right? Groups, organizations, and when they did things, they moved in a manner where it might not have been something like this, but the guy Luigi Mangione, when you read his manifesto, you know, if you squint your eyes, Baba, you would say, wait a minute, this guy was connected to a liberation movement, because what he did, the way he justified it, he said, the system is
When we
wrong.
see, it's like the thing that happened in Louisiana today.
Yeah, that's right.
And everybody's calling the person evil. Did they scream evil when all those women and children was being killed by our tax money in Palestine, in Gaza? Women and children being blown to bits every day after day, week after week, month after month, paid for by the President of the United States, given the bombs and the technology and the money and the steel dome and all of this to Israel, so they can carry on the murder of all those women and children. A couple 100,000. and American citizens using their tax money and pay for it. And they say, oh, well, it's all right to kill a couple of 100,000 people because somebody killed 1,000 people on the
Right.
other side. And so on a day-to-day basis, you can kill. That all happened in one day, but you can now kill every day for a year, women and children with nobody objecting. Then go bomb Lebanon, and then secretly bomb Syria, and nobody say nothing. And then you say somebody who sympathized with that because they could not take that genocide anymore, killed some of your people, and you calling them, you're talking about we are against terrorism. We are one of the biggest terrorist states in the world. And then we having the Secretary of State come and say, well, I talked to Netanyahu and we told him we want him to stop. Then why did you just give him $500 million worth of bombs to drop if you're telling him to stop?
Wow.
You know, with my tax money, without my permission. You know, they violated everything that treaty that goes along with how to use American armaments. And you're still giving it to them in violation of the very treaty that say they can't use it in that way to kill women and children. And then you cry because somebody run a car. I feel so sorry for the 15 people who died and their families, and
It was
35
15, Baba.
15 at this point.
Oh wow, because I saw this morning they showed 10. It was 10 people.
No, it got up to 15 during the day. But we sit here as an American people and sanction the murder of men, women, and children, especially women and children, for month after month. It's been more than a year, and they're still killing the women and children of
That's
Gaza.
right. That's right.
And we sit here sanctioning it and wonder and telling me something about some ISIS is a terrorist. ISIS couldn't begin to do what we did in Gaza. ISIS couldn't begin to do what we did in Lebanon. We killed 1 million civilians in what do you call it? Saddam Hussein place there.
Saudi Arabia.
No,
Iraq, Kuwait.
We killed 1 million civilians, and America somehow is exempt from war crimes. How do you get exempt from war crimes? And you go kill 1 million civilians, just walk away and come back home and talking about taking care of your veterans. Those youngsters you sent up to commit murder in the corporate American name. We're coming back to the corporate guy, CEO who was killed.
Yep, I'm listening.
There's nothing innocent about him. He is a criminal. He was a criminal. He's a corporate criminal. What the pharmaceutical companies and the insurance companies are doing in America is straight up Hitleristic criminal behavior. Some young man couldn't take it anymore and he acted on it. You know. So we have to look in the mirror and say, what is really America? Are we the murderers of all of those people in Gaza? Yes, we are. Our money, our bombs, our technology, our protection of Israel, our sanctioning. Netanyahu had not done nothing America didn't sanction. Because America has the technology to remove any human being in the world it wants to if it doesn't listen to them.
Mm.
Okay? It has the technology, and we know they have the will. Because we've seen it from Patrice Lumumba to Martin Luther King. Government of the United States killed Martin Luther King.
A lot of people don't know that. A lot of people don't know.
A lot of people know, but they don't have the courage to say. They know.
Yeah.
Government of the United States killed John Kennedy. They killed their own president. You know. And so now bits and pieces. That's why they're afraid of the Kennedy guy getting in the administration, because they know he don't care nothing about health or nothing. He's in there to find out who killed his father and his uncle.
Okay. Who is that? Is it Robert Kennedy? Is that his name?
Yeah. He's in there to find out who killed his brother. And one news person said it one day that he tried to get his niece in the CIA in a key position so they can open these files. You know? So people know what's up. It's just that they ain't gonna do nothing about it. But that's my tax money you use to drop those bombs and blow up those women and children. And I got a say in that. You may reject or don't like my having a say, But that young man, I hate to see anybody kill anybody. No one should die because somebody killed them. But if you want to behave as a criminal, you can do it in whatever pleasant sounding way you want. You can call it pharmaceutical, you can call it medical profession, you can call it banking, you can call it Wall Street brokering. If you're operating a criminal enterprise that leads to the death of other human beings, you're a criminal. Whatever your enterprise is, you're a criminal.
Yeah.
If you operate in the way that you impoverish other people so that they lose their lives and livelihood, you are a criminal. You know?
I
We justify ourselves because we're sitting at the table of the criminals, eating the crumbs that fall from that table. So we up here trying to justify and rationalize our eating the crumbs by somehow trying to make the criminal not look like criminal anymore. We crazy as hell.
I I did a Bill Baba called it was a 3-part series. I called it the Holy Trinity of Capitalism. And I was dealing with the food industry, the medical industry, and the pharmaceutical industry, because those three are all connected. And what you just said, they're all connected. And so there again, like you said, I heard you say we have to, in IFA, dealing with how we eat, how we take care of ourselves. If we follow a dietary law, if we, whether it be IFA, whether it be how to eat to live, whether it be the father's dietary, not eating 3 meals a day, that's, if you're healthy and you don't have an ailment, that's crazy for you to do that. But drinking more water, right? Keeping hydrated, because we are 3/4, we are 3/4 water. So we need water. A lot of times we're not hungry, we're satiated, we're past dehydration, we're super thirsty. So you're absolutely right. But I broke that down, and I'll send the video to you. It's crazy what I found when I researched. And it's just like you say, the pharmaceutical companies, uh it was people who were inside of the companies, inside of the government, saying that they're paying off these people who are supposed to be ensuring that these drugs protect the civilians. A lot of the monitors go and work for the pharmaceutical companies and get these big payoffs. The medical field is denying people claims, talking about, that was United. For a while, a lot of companies weren't offering up anesthesia. You had to pay for that. That's crazy, right? Because if you have a
And
surgery,
the expense of the anesthesia is out of the ball.
right, it's necessary for just about 99% of your surgeries. They're going to take, if you have to go under, you're going to have to get general anesthesia, but they don't want to pay for it. But they put a heavy, high price tag on it. And so what I found was after he was killed, they said, oh, you can have anesthesia. We're going to include that under a lot of the policies, And so, so yeah, just connecting the three, because they are really connected. It's almost like I said, it's almost like getting into the judicial system. Once you get in there, once they pull you in, it's hard to get out. It's the same with those
Because
industries.
it's designed to make money off of you.
Absolutely.
The young man who was murdered by these corrections officers in upstate New York.
Yeah.
People are looking shocked. That happens every day. That one got caught on camera.
Right. That's right.
But it happens every day. That kind of beating, that kind of terrorism on the part of mostly poor white trash and poor black trash and poor Latino trash who think their job is to be judge and jury. They have no respect for the judiciary system. They have no respect for law and order, and they get a good pay and a pension. And most of the black ones who are in corrections, they know they're brutalizing and misusing. So 99% of them move out of the black community and they live in white suburbia, hiding
Wow.
across the country.
Wow.
You don't find a black corrections officer because they know one day those brothers are going to come home from that jail and they're going to remember who brutalized them up in there.
Yeah, that's crazy. That's crazy.
Mm-hmm.
Doc, man, I appreciate you. I always tell people,
Well, I'm
don't
glad I could stop by.
for sure. This won't be the last time. Listen,
Yeah.
we talked about that. I don't want you to leave just yet. I don't want you to log off just yet, because I want to say something after we go off air. But I want to tell you guys something real quick about how I met Baba Smalls. First of all, I'm a big viewer and reviewer and researcher of historians such as Professor Smalls. You know, there are few people who connect us with giants that are left, right? Um, you got Minister Farrakhan. He connected us with Malcolm. He connected us with the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. He connected us with Muhammad Ali. He was our bridge, right?
Mm-hmm.
Even with Khalid Muhammad, even though
Right.
Khalid left sooner, even Khalid Muhammad, the minister is our bridge. With Professor Smalls, he is our bridge to Francis Cress Welsing, to Dr. Asa Hiller, Dr. John Henry Clark, who was in Malcolm's cabinet. Y'all should know who Dr. John Henry Clark is.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Dr. Ben Jockanon, right? All of these giants, right, in academia. A lot of these movements that you guys follow, a lot of these intellectual movements, these are the people that a lot of the ideologies and the theologies are based on, those authors. So Professor Smalls is our bridge. He's one of the giants that's left. And he's done so much. He's done so much. We didn't even talk about Sister Ella, right? Malcolm's sister. But nonetheless, when I met Baba Smalls in I think it was 2022 in Charlotte, North Carolina. Uh, I had prior to that, I was doing my podcast and I wasn't visual yet. It was audio, so you could just hear me. I would just speak and go over my things, and it was around something happened, and I was dealing with the Black Panther movie, because I remember in 2018 when it came out, when I went to see it, I could not help but analyze, and my critical mind couldn't help but take in the undergird of what I was watching. And I wasn't being enamored and charmed by the actors and the black director and the special effects. It was all A1, but I couldn't get away from what I had just seen. And so I remember I saw Baba Smalls. He was on another one, and I'll look for it. I couldn't find it. Sometimes YouTube takes stuff off, y'all. But they asked Baba Smalls about it, and he said something that I based one of my shows on. It became the title. He said, "Behind all content is intent," and he went to break down the
Mm-hmm.
the undergirds, just as I had broke down with my family and told them, this is exactly. We almost said the exact same thing. This is what people are missing. They're so excited. They're wearing their African garb. They're doing the celebratory, customary outward shows, right, of affinity for Africa without thinking, what is the storyline? What is this trying to tell me? So when I ran into Baba Smalls, I ran up to him and I said, I want you to read something. I showed him the title of my podcast. I said, I want you to read this and tell me who said this. And he said, "Behind all content is intent." Hey, man, that's me. I said, exactly. I
I
appreciate
got it from Dr. Asa Hilliard.
That's what he said. That was Dr. Asa Hilliard that said that?
That's the
Oh,
first
wow.
Dr. Hilliard. And
Wow.
we were in Kansas City doing a training for the Kansas City African Standard School System. Him, Dr.
Wow.
Nobles, and myself.
Wow. That's crazy. But I heard you say that. I heard him say that.
Yeah, I've used it extensively, and
Yes.
sometimes I forget to mention Asa, but that's Asa.
Yeah. And I said,
All intent all content has
has
Asa.
intent. It's the truth.
He reversed it, and all intent
Intent.
content.
That's right. Yeah, that's right. Yeah. So, man, Dr. Professor Smalls was surprisingly humble and down to earth. And I was just shocked. But a lot of the brothers that were there, I met Rizza, he was the same way. Nuri was the same way, just
Mm.
giving with their time. Regular brothers didn't want a lot of the fanfare, just talking about regular things. Brother, what you got going on? And so me and Baba connected, and he said, "Look, when I told him I had a podcast and I wanted him to be on it, he said, 'I got you, brother. Take my number.'" And we talked, and we're gonna set it up. And yeah, man, I set it up because I know Baba's a busy guy, and you guys can catch Baba on. Just type in Professor James Smalls in YouTube, and it'll be extensive and expensive on any topic,
Yeah.
and you'll see it. It'll auto-populate.
And I didn't put one of those on YouTube.
Of course you didn't. I'm putting this one on. You're not gonna put this one on.
Yeah, but it's cool. The information is for the people, and the more people we can reach, the more people we can circulate to help to wake
Yes.
up and to think
Yes.
and to plan and to plot
Yes.
their way to freedom. You know,
Yes.
freedom isn't something somebody give to you. I think Asada tells us that the oppressor don't give you freedom.
Gotta take
You
it.
got to take that,
Gotta take it.
but you don't always have to take it with a gun because that's inappropriate. Many times you got to take it with your mind.
Mm-hmm.
You got to take it with your mind. And if you take your freedom with your mind and reclaim yourself, and it isn't a question of labeling where you're from. Like, we got the brothers and sisters saying foundation of Black American, but they themselves can't tell you what that means. And the foundation of black people were everywhere before anybody else was anywhere. We were
That's
in
right.
Europe before the white man. We were
The
in
original
Africa
man.
before the Asian man. We were in North America before the red man or the yellow
Teach.
man or the white man. But don't confuse the fact that some of us come earlier, then somehow does that mean we're not related to those who come later?
Right.
If you move up from Tennessee, your mother and father move up from Tennessee to Chicago to get some job, and they bring you and your brother and sister up 10 years later, y'all ain't related to them no more?
Right.
That is so stupid. It is, and I want Tariq to understand how stupid that is. And I love Tariq. Tariq has done some brilliant stuff, but then he gets off into stupid. And I don't understand that. And he needs to explain it to his people because he's hurting the heart of his people. People love Tariq Nasheed. People love Hidden Colors. He
For sure.
enlightened so much of the world with that series. But when they hear him attacking brothers and sisters from other parts of the world and calling them names, it sounds so illogical from all the work that he had done. And so he really needs to address that to his people. What's going on? We don't want to be thinking nothing negative is going on. So tell us what is going on. Yes, we have brothers and sisters that come from home that behave inappropriate towards us and partner with white people, but we got brothers and sisters that live right here with us do the same thing. You
For sure.
know what I'm saying? They
Yeah.
do the same thing. And if we understand history, we understand why both of them are doing what they're doing.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
That's what Hidden Colors was teaching us. The
Mm-hmm.
contradiction that produced Negro behavior, the contradiction that produced coon behavior. So why are we shocked at the victim of enslaving technology? Then we attack the victim of the enslaving technology instead of the victimizers. So
I'm
we
with
got
you.
work to do. You got a right to name yourself anything you want to name yourself. You can call yourself the hoop-a-doo man walking backwards, my pants around my ankle. That's your business. You don't have the right to attack me. You don't have the right to attack my race. You don't have the right to attack my nation. You don't have the right to attack my brothers and sisters because you cannot understand why they're psycho-spiritually injured, why they're culturally injured, why they're intellectually injured, when you made the best series in the world, Hidden Colors, describing why they're injured. So what's going on? What's going on?
I
I
understand it.
want to know.
No, I understand
It
it.
should
And
be about unity. It should be about unity. If we
yeah.
got sick people, sick brothers and sisters out here, let's talk about them. And let's
Yes,
tell
sir.
them how to get away from their sickness.
Mm-hmm.
Let's tell those on this side who abandon the black community and move into the white community,
Mm-hmm.
you know, and leave our people after we work hard to get them jobs and get them education. And they partner this thing with going over to Trump. That's an extreme. People were doing that kind of thing with other people whose name wasn't Trump. Okay, for decades and decades and decades. And so we need to ask the fundamental question: who are you fighting for, and how? And we need to realize how damaged you must be not to fight for your own freedom. And for those out of the fear and the terrorism, they're going to lose their green card or they won't get a green card. And we don't understand that. And yet they're coming out of poverty in their own homeland that's brought about by the colonizers and the imperialists who we work to support. Our supporting and working and taxpaying America is furthering the imperialism and neocolonialism and colonialism in Africa.
Mm-hmm.
So please, let's sit down and try to get it right and get everybody into some appropriate behavior instead of attacking one another and demeaning one another and the putting down of one another. We could do better than that.
Listen,
smarter than that.
Look, I got a lot of love for you and Brother Tariq, and hopefully you guys.
Tariq, no, I love him. We don't argue.
Yeah.
I don't argue with Tariq. This is the person I've ever spoken publicly about a critique. I spoke to Tariq 2 weeks ago.
Yes, sir.
Tariq has done some beautiful work and still paused to do some even more beautiful work.
Mm-hmm.
But that thing with the attack on non-foundational Black Americans is a misstep. It is a misstep. Call them out, criticize them, but invite them to be healed, to be corrected, to be made appropriate. But otherwise, you're just creating the same division that your great work, Hidden Colors, had said close the gap on.
Right, had worked to close.
To close the gap.
Mm-hmm.
And the world, and you're not just known in America for Hidden Colors, you're known worldwide. So people are in shock when they hear some of the things being said recently. And so you need to explain to people why are we saying this? And what can we do to stop what's stimulating this? We're supposed to be the intellectual, spiritual leaders of the world. Then let's act like it.
Absolutely. Listen, Baba, I am super duper grateful that you.
So one of the things I just want to let people know, I'm part of that community that he's trying to label, and others are trying to label ADOS and Foundational Black America. My people on one side, almost 3/4 of my family was here before Columbus got here.
Oh, wow.
I know my lineage.
Mm-hmm.
I know my heritage.
Yes, sir.
Most of us were killed off by white diseases before half of the slave ships even started arriving here. He killed us off by the millions with his diseases. Some of it was deliberate. The rest of us amalgamated. We married those that came on the ships. Some went and married into the Asiatic that we call Indians, but most married the people that came on the slave ships. Those of us who were left after the disease genocide, But I can take you to my family grave. How many of the rest of you that say Foundation of Black America? Can you take me to the mounds where your people are buried? I can take you to mine. But that's not significant to anything. We just came from Africa earlier than the last group. We just came from Africa earlier than the brother just got off the plane from Nigeria or Ghana last week. But that makes him less than African or me less than African. I grew up out of the ground like a weed over here. We need to see what silly looks like when silly is silly.
Hey, I'm with you, Baba. I'm with you. I understand it. I understand. No, but listen, I'm so glad that you were so giving and compensatory with your time. Before we get out of here, like I said, I don't want you to jump off just yet when the show ends because I want to
only have about 3 minutes because I got to go fix my cabinet.
So listen, if you could tell the people anything, your handles, where they can find you at, any lectures, any interview, anything, any way that they can get in contact with Professor James Smalls, go ahead.
One, Professor Small African World, which is my Facebook page, and my website is Professor James Small. Well, Professor James Small African World. That's my page, and then my web page is www.professorjamessmall.com, and then of course I have my I don't even use the little bird anymore, but I still use Instagram, and that's jamessmall.313. and I know I'm going to be doing something on the 15th and 16th at the Masonic Hall in Jacksonville, Florida. But you can you just watch my page, Professor Small African World. It'll be posted. The flyers will be posted there. And I'll be doing something in Tennessee and Chattanooga on the, I think that's the 15th of January. 15th or 19th of January. But again, go to Professor Small African World and on my Facebook page, and the post of the flyers will be there. Or you'll see it on Instagram going around. If you're in those areas, attend, support the people in those areas. Brother Umar down in Chattanooga and Jacksonville. And I forgot my sister, she's going to strangle me down in Chattanooga. Well, I'm doing something else. I did a bunch of Kwanzaa thing in the communities last week. But anytime I'm doing anything, it's posted on my Facebook page or on my web page. And really and I fly things through Instagram all the time, especially my flyers, which would be helpful. And I'm gonna be sending everything I do to Brother Faheem, so he can post it on his pages. And you can
Absolutely.
check. So I look forward to coming to his page, and I'll make sure I send the flyers to him.
Please do.
Post those events as well.
Please do, because I will. I absolutely will.
But African peoples, and I tell people, stop trying to attack Brother Tariq. Try to have a conversation.
Absolutely.
So you can learn from what his critique is and why he's vociferous, and you can probably figure out the best way to help them to see what you may see that they don't see.
Mm-hmm.
And I tell Brother Tariq the same thing. Spend more time dialoguing with brothers. Everybody gonna try to beat you up if they're right. It's just like dominoes or chess. You're just gonna have to make your best play without becoming the enemy of the person you're playing chess with. People don't play chess and be the enemies of one another. They play chess as brothers and trying to see who can be the better thinker.
Right. Iron sharpens iron.
Our history is our history.
Mm-hmm.
We know very little about our history here in North America. These people have taken so much of it and hid it away. They've always known that we were here. When I first came to New York City, they had what they call an Indian museum on 155th and Broadway.
Mm-hmm.
And I would go over there all the time, and all of the mummies, they had mummies. And they were all black, like pygmy people, swamp people. But they've moved the museum now downtown in the white community.
Mm.
I haven't been there since they took it down to the Commerce House downtown there by Wall Street. But they've always known we were black. I've always known we were. From the time I'm a little boy, Papa would take us, we clean our mound every year. Our people didn't bury underground, they bury above ground, you know. And I'm from South Carolina, along the Walkamore River, PD River. And the people they call the Native American is the Chicora Nation. But the Chicora was not white people. The Yamasees was not white people. We were African peoples who came over earlier. Some of us came over with the Malian king. Some came thousands of years before the Malian king. But most of North America was under ice for most of the time. We didn't populate a lot of North America. Okay, population of North America is a later thing. We populated those Caribbean islands and the Central South America.
Mm.
Because the ice had most of this thing covered. The southern part along the Gulf and along the southern eastern seaboard, South Carolina, North Carolina, South Carolina, Florida. But study geology and see how long could we have occupied the non-glacial North America.
Non-glacial, meaning the ice, without the ice.
Right? When the ice had receded.
Yes.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
But once the ice receded, the Atlantic Ocean rose. We could almost walk over here from Africa.
Wow.
They don't think about none of that.
Wow.
We can still get over here in a rowboat in 2 weeks. Why Columbus took so long because the fool, he probably really did get lost, even though he had some black navigators showing him how to find the Gulf Stream.
Absolutely, he did.
There's 3 streams that comes over here. You can get in there, sit back, put up your canopy, and go to sleep, and the boat's going to land you in the Bahamas or in Puerto Rico or Dominican Republic every time.
Yeah, I think Ivan Van Sertima talked about who the African that led the ship for Columbus, right? Was that
Yeah,
in that came before Columbus?
he was a young man. I don't know about Ivan's work, but I found it in other places. He comes from the place called Elmina today in Ghana.
Hmm.
Columbus worked with his father-in-law on building the Elmina slave dungeon. So the slave dungeon in there. This is when he was working on his father-in-law's ship. And one of the young men they took back with them to Spain, is the same one who was the navigator that brought him over here. He didn't know where he was going, but the young man knew where he was going. And Black folks have been coming and going back and forth across that ocean for centuries.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
They would rather said you came across the Pacific, which is 5 times longer than that you came across the Atlantic, right? Because white folks are just crazy, and we buy into their craziness. So, but brothers and sisters, it's the African race is going to unite with or without those who are fighting against unity, right? We're doing it every day, but it'd be easier if we dialogue around our differences and find ways to explain our history and to find ways to correct those who behave inappropriately than it is to go at war with each other while we at war with the Asians and at war with the Europeans.
Absolutely. I agree. I couldn't agree more. Baba, listen, if you stick around, I'm going to end it right here. I'm
Yes,
so thankful. This is just the first of many great interviews that we'll have together.
yes, sir.
Soon we'll be on stage together.
That'd be good too.
Yeah, we'll be on stage together. And I just want to say thank you for number one, the great works that you're doing. Thank you for keeping your word, being a man in your word, and thank you for blessing my stage and my platform, Baba. It means a lot. It means a whole lot. Listen, you guys, y'all know where to find me. Y'all know every Monday, 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. We have a bill. We have a wonderful guest. This has been a huge treat. Listen, like Minister Malcolm would say in his talks. Hey, listen. May we all meet again in the light of understanding, peace, and I'll see you guys the next time.